Hello everyone, welcome to Stealth video series. Lawful permanent residents living outside of the states are required to follow certain rules and regulations to maintain their LPR status. Failing to do so will affect how they re-enter the country. If you have been affected by it, SB1 Returning Resident Visa is the tool with which you can normally re-enter the United States. In this article, we will explain everything you need to know about the SB1 visa. What is a Returning Resident Visa? SB1. A Returning Resident Visa or an SB1 visa is a type of visa used by conditional residents in the United States to re-enter the country after they have been away from the country for a considerable amount of time. The amount of time they stay outside is usually more than what is allowed. As per the green card abandonment rules, the green card will be considered abandoned if the holder stays outside of the US for more than a year. This is the case if you do not have a re-entry permit. If you do have a re-entry permit, then you can stay outside the US for up to 2 years. If you have lived abroad for less than 12 months, then your permanent resident card is enough to re-enter. But if you have exceeded the limits, then you will be asked to get a returning resident visa. So basically, you are applying for a new visa since your previous visa was deemed abandoned. You need to submit the SB1 visa from the country you are located in. If it is approved, the limitations are withdrawn and you are allowed to fly back into the US. This is great to gain your green card status back if you are outside for some reasons that were outside your control. Who qualifies for a returning resident visa? Returning resident visa is meant for US lawful residents who have stayed outside of the US for more than the permitted time frame. Before leaving the United States, you must get a re-entry permit by filling Form I-131. With a re-entry permit in hand, you can remain outside of the United States for a period of up to 2 years. Not only lawful residents, but this rule is also applicable to a certain category of conditional residents, CR. Before applying for the returning resident visa at a US consulate, you must meet 3 basic requirements. Those are: you had held the status of a lawful permanent resident when you left the US. You had shown the intention of returning to the United States and not abandoning your status. You are not ineligible for a visa in any other aspect. You can produce sufficient evidence to justify your absence beyond the permitted limit. Some of the legit reasons which can be considered as beyond your control are: you're severely ill and couldn't have traveled. You became pregnant, which limited your traveling. Your passport and other documents were withheld because of a family dispute. You are not permitted to leave the country in which you are located. Documents required for a returning resident visa. When applying for the SB1 visa, you will be asked to produce relevant documents for consideration. These documents will also be used during your application and interview process. Therefore, keep them ready before you visit the US Embassy. Here are the basic documents required. A complete Form DS-117. This can be downloaded from the state government's website. Your permanent resident card. Your re-entry permit, if you had received one. Supporting documents which will be asked for are: travel documents like a boarding pass, proof of ties of the United States like tax returns, property owned, family, and social ties. 2 into 2 inches recent photograph. As already mentioned, you will also be required to submit proof that your protracted stay outside of the United States was beyond your control. This has to be directly related to your situation. If you had medical complications, then you should produce relevant documents summarizing your medical history. How to apply for a returning resident visa? Applying for the returning resident visa is easier and is simpler than applying for a new visa altogether. Therefore, this method is preferred and recommended. It is advised that you start the application process as much early as possible before your anticipated travel date. Here are the steps involved for applying for a returning resident visa or SB1 visa. Step 1. Complete Form DS-117 and gather documents. The application process starts with downloading the DS117 application to determine resident status and gathering the documents mentioned above. You need to fill out the application form either by yourself or with the help of an attorney. This is a 3-page form including instructions. You need to provide personal information, travel history, and immigration records. File your application. Next, you need to visit the local US consulate and file the DS117 in person. After verifying the documents, the officials will initiate an interview and ask you a set of questions. Answer them truthfully and in as much detail as possible. Step 3. Submit DS260 and attend the medical examination. If your application is approved, the consulate will ask you to fill out another form, namely DS260, the Immigrant Visa Electronic Application. You will be completing this online. As with any immigration process, the doctors will check your health and vaccination requirements. Finally, the consulate will issue your passport a new I-551 with which you can travel back to the US. Where to submit your SB1 application? You are required to submit the SB1 application at the local US Embassy in your country of residence. You have to submit the forms in person since there is no facility for online application for SB1 visas. The address for the local US Embassy can be obtained from the official state government website. Returning resident visa cost. The main cost which you need to incur is the application fee, which is $205. If your application is approved, then you will have to incur the DS260 processing fees and medical examination and vaccination fees. If you have used any translation services or sought legal help, then those are an additional cost. The fees of $205 can be paid either in cash or credit card or any other accepted method. SB1 Application Denial. If the reasons cited by you for your inability to return to the US within permitted limits are found insufficient, then your SB1 application will be denied. They will, however, request additional documents or information before completely closing your case. Then, it's up to your ability to produce those documents. In case you cannot, your only option to return to the United States is to apply for a new US visa from the beginning. When you travel outside of the United States as a green card holder, you should make all possible efforts to get back within the 1-year time frame. SB1 isn't complicated but is definitely stringent when it comes to the eligibility. Before proceeding with the application, we advise you to consult with an immigration attorney and formulate the best plan. An SB1 returning visa is always better than starting the visa process all over again. We hope this video has been helpful to you. At Stilt, we provide financial services for immigrants and the underserved. Subscribe to our channel and visit stilt.com for more details.